If you've been to, say, the Salt Lake City airport, they're transforming the experience for that end user. It may be that you're directing a person, but you're also kind of creating a brand.
Hello, everybody. How are we doing on this beautiful day? The AC Method here, the podcast where we're exploring the arts and sciences of running a successful business in the custom manufacturing signage industry. And that is a lot all in itself in one little area. And I have Cybelle on with us, and she's with SEGD. And if you guys don't know what SEGD is, please tune into this. And the funniest thing is, before I even say anything more, you might want to take this podcast and give it to your clients as well, because they need to hear this. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Aaron?
Doing well, loving life.
Yeah.
So I love your resume, so I want to go back in time and just talk about a couple of things because it's just so cool and so neat. I got to go right at this beginning, the museum.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me all about the museum and how much fun that was, because nobody gets to really see the inner workings of those.
Yeah, so I actually have a funny career trajectory. I went to architecture school, and I landed at an internship in Washington, D.C., where I found out that there are firms that design museum exhibitions. And so that was my first career. And some of the fun projects that I worked on, actually, the first project I worked on was the Geology, Gems, and Minerals Gallery at the Smithsonian, and I got to wear the Hope Diamond. And I
Oh,
lived to tell
wow.
the tale. It doesn't come off
Nobody
the
gets to say that.
display very often, but I did. Yeah, it was really exciting. And later in my career, I worked on the International Spy Museum, and that was great because I got to meet with all sorts of spies and hear the stories behind the scenes. And so it was an incredible career. You get to meet, former presidents and actors and World War II veterans. And so that's really great. You kind of learn history that maybe you didn't learn when you were a kid. And it was a lot of fun. And it's how I got connected to SCGD. So I had met the then CEO of SCGD, and my former boss was on the board, and she told me about this great organization of designers that design everything from exhibitions to signage and wayfinding and digital experiences. And so that's how I landed here.
How did you get anything done with meeting all these neat people and the great stories? Like, I would talk and talk for hours.
I did. I literally did. Actually, it's funny because one of the spies that I worked with, her name is Jana Mendez. And if you've seen the movie Argo, that's about her husband, Tony Mendez, who actually got the Iran hostages out. And I'm taking a trip with her in a month. She's great. She's written a couple books. But you build lifelong relationships with people. It's amazing. Yeah.
That's just so cool. Just on some, I mean, them alone, how many stories they have.
I know.
I mean,
I
you
know.
just sit there. I literally would be drunk because I'd be like, another bottle of wine. Let's keep
Yeah.
talking. Let's keep
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah. Yeah. We did some of that too. Actually, there's I won't tell my husband to watch this podcast, but when I was working in the Spy Museum, I got married, but we had a trip planned to Berlin. So I actually left the day after my wedding day and went with my client, and we flew to Berlin for a spy research trip. So my husband's always like, yeah, the honeymoon that I wasn't on.
Oh, what a great story. I really love that.
Yeah.
And so you were at the World War II Museum, the International Spy Museum, and then the Olympic and the
Yeah.
Paralympic.
Yeah.
Tell me more about the Olympic museums. I mean, other than seeing a couple medals, what am I really going to be looking at in that type of museum?
Well, the interesting thing is that I don't think anyone realized that the US did not have our own Olympic museum until it opened during COVID. And so we really tell the story of the Olympian and the Paralympian, and so much of that story is like these really heartfelt, like, what does it take to be an Olympian? I mean, mostly you are like starting from 2 years old on. They say to be a great ski jumper, if you don't start jumping before you like know what fear is, you'll never be able to be like a high jumper. So we met with a lot of Olympians and Paralympians and just heard about their life story and the journey that they took to become an Olympian, everything that their family sacrificed. I mean, a lot of these people are not wealthy, but they're dedicating every paycheck and every minute, and they're like taking the kids to their trainers first thing in the morning and going to every tournament game. And so you learn a lot about what it takes, that Olympic spirit, and then how they're representing their country. They're on the world stage representing the US, and whether they come home with a medal or not. Like, one thing that I'll never forget is they said the most important moment for them is then they're waiting for the country to be called, and they go out, into the world stage, and they're, waving, and they said, that's everything for them. It just like gave them chills, and just to represent their country and be side by side with the other Olympians. And oftentimes these people they put their whole career into that. They don't make a lot of money, and so just they have to love the sport and what the sport means to them. So, I mean, when you work on projects like that, it's just all encompassing. You get so immersed in it. And then how does the design manifest that narrative? And so what is the experience like for the visitor? So for that project, we used personalization. So you could come in and say, oh, I'm into ice skating, or, I'm into volleyball. And so that, or winter sports, summer sports. So an RFID, that you have a lanyard will kind of track you, and it recognizes you as you go through the different stations. And if you are, say, a wheelchair user, or if you're sight impaired, it'll actually know that, and it can provide, either settings or information that, work, or even in different languages. So it's amazing
Oh,
what
wow.
technology is doing for design now. Yeah.
Oh, that's next level. I mean, that's not something I think about. You think of a museum, you think of cool artifacts, but
Yeah.
to flat out change the trajectory of how you walk through and how you experience it and immerse yourself in it, that's really impressive.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
even know they're at that stage.
Yeah. So, Aaron, what's your sport? What sport would you pick?
Motocross.
Okay. I don't think it's an
Yep.
Olympic
I know
sport.
it's not an Olympic
Pick
sport.
one.
It's surfing, motocross, the San Diego sports, it's just,
Oh yeah, you're
if I had to
a
give you one, I'd
SoCal
say,
guy.
yeah, the SoCal guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's this thing. And then, SEGD, that is design at its core in the whole feel. And you and I were talking offline here before we hopped on, and we talked about one of the coolest design things was the airports these days.
Yeah.
And the airports are not an airport anymore. They are an experience as you go through.
Yeah.
And I never really thought about that. I just went, oh, this is really pretty. This is really neat. But I never thought that, yeah, you're correct. As an experience piece, it could have been a rectangle walls that you just walk forever, and it could have been dull and boring and monotonous.
Yeah. And stressful. I mean, part of the things that we say, and I should explain what SCGD stands for, because people don't really get it, the acronym, but it's that we're a nonprofit member organization of the Society of Experiential Graphic Design. So what does that mean? So anything where you're designing in the physical space that connects people to place. So oftentimes that's communication design, be it signage, wayfinding, exhibition. But as you see everywhere now, whether it's transportation, whether it's healthcare, people want a memorable experience. And if you're a good client, you will realize that memorable does not mean they got lost, they got stressed out, they got mad. They couldn't find their way. They couldn't find, the parental restroom. They couldn't, figure out how to get to their gate. And so if you've been to, say, the Salt Lake City airport, or Portland, Oregon, or Kansas City, or LaGuardia, what you're seeing is that they're transforming the experience for that end user through the signage and wayfinding and digital experiences, so that it may be that you're directing a person, but you're also kind of creating a brand. Like in Portland, Oregon, you arrive and they want you to feel like you're in the forest, because everybody thinks of, like, the beautiful forest. And so that design, that experiential environmental graphics like wayfinding and signage system is completely integrated into the architecture, and it's beautiful. It's award winning. And that's what we're realizing now, that when we say the word like sign or signage, we kind of have to move away from that, and clients need to think about whatever it is that I represent, whether it's retail, whether it's a cultural institution or a stadium, that people are taking their time to be there and they want a great experience. And so whether you think it's your brand or not, it actually is. It's how people feel, it's the memories they create when they're in that space. We see people taking selfies, it's because they're having a great time. And so, places that are stressful or monotonous, like airports or train stations or hospital waiting rooms, you can really see when the clients are investing in design. And I think it pays off because the quality of care is better, the memories, people will go back to a particular airport because it's better and it's easier for them. They will avoid airports that are notoriously horrible, TSA lines, directions, all those kinds of amenities, all of that. So design makes a
I,
difference.
it makes a huge difference. It's funny because everything that you just said, I knew a little bit here and there, but to hear it encompass and put it all in a nice, pretty package and a bow, there's so much that goes into the design. There's so much of that experience that feels like, and you're right. Everything what you just said is so accurate. I go to certain airports because it's easy for me. And you don't go to the other ones. I choose particular paths because it's easier. And as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about it in my own head. It's exactly right. The
Yeah.
design, the elements, how easy it is for me to move around, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I mean, and if you even think of like, anywhere that's a destination, whether it's like a national park, or you're traveling and you're headed to a downtown, like when do you get those indications of like that I've arrived? And when do you have that sense of arrival? So, sometimes we just think of it as street signs, but they can actually really brand that community and give a sense of place, so that it's like, I think we're realizing that it's not a one stop shop. It used to be that signage and environmental graphics or design could be like, I could be in Houston, or I could be in Tacoma, or I could be in New York City. But now we're realizing that the importance of place has to be integrated into that system. And the materials, the texture, the quality, that's what gives people that sense of arrival. And we can't overlook it. Like if it's an end of the project budget, it's gonna actually cost you more, because you have to integrate and think about this narrative, think about the visitor journey at the forefront when the architects are there, the developers there, the clients there, trying to lay out what that schedule and budget is going to be. And if it's not, it looks like an afterthought.
It does. It really, really does. You can drive by buildings and you can look at that signage. Just simple signage, not
Yeah. Yep.
complex projects that
Yeah,
we're talking about, but just the littlest of
absolutely.
things. And you look right at it and you're like, this is horrible. The
Yeah.
architect had no plans. The sign company did what best they could. Like, it's a rough one.
Yeah. Or they didn't. I mean, back in the days when I was designing museums, notoriously you would have a beautiful graphic and you would get on site and there would be like a fire extinguisher cabinet or a strobe. And you're like, okay, somebody didn't cross, or there's no power for that sign. Oh, okay. Well, that's going to cost extra. We're going to have to bring power. And so, I think when things are seamlessly integrated, they just work so much better. And so that's really thinking about how you're going to integrate signage, wayfinding, experiential graphics. And they can also do more. They can be a narrative, they can be fun, they can be, they really add to the charm or the culture of the place or the space.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. The charm and the experience and all that, but just the colors add such a feeling. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, there's a reason why we don't paint red in hospitals. We don't need that
Yes.
aggravation. We need to soothe them in the
Yes.
blues, and
Yeah.
and there's so much that goes into that. When you take that thought process, add it to exterior and environmental, and then tie it all together with a theme, it just changes everything. It really changes the dynamic of it. And it's super funny because I don't think a lot of people have recognized that the signage made it. It was the hood ornament on the beautiful car.
Right.
They just know it was beautiful or didn't do well
Yeah.
And the architect or the contractor is probably like, well, it was no difference to me. It's still a box. It's still a functioning apparatus, but you
Right.
didn't have the flair, for lack of a better term, on it, and it's all wrapped together. It's not going to look well. It's going to
No.
look off.
And you're right, color, it's funny that you brought that up because we had an event. So part of what we do at SEGD is we host conferences and we do a lot of professional development. And so we had an event with the International Sign Association in Las Vegas, and one of our talks and tours was on the fountain blue. And the fountain blue uses a lot of blue, but certain gamblers don't like blue. It's not a lucky color. And so, if you're an Asian gambler, typically you think of colors in your culture that mean good luck, and that's red. So there's so many nuances of what things mean to different people that are sometimes subliminal. Like if something is really, if you think about a hospital, you're rushing your wife in, to have your first child, like you would like something calm and welcoming. That's maybe not the same place that you want to be bringing someone in who just got into a car accident. So we have to think about how we design from the get-go of directing people so that we have the best quality experience for what that guest need is. Like, we had a phenomenal talk last year in Dallas around what hospitals are doing. So, like, if you have to go in for chemo treatment, we're designing spaces because, there might be a parent taking a kid, they have to work. So, where can they work? Where can their siblings have spaces to play? These are things that we never ever thought about, right? But qualitatively, it's making people's lives better. So, I talk a lot about the cost of lost. If you don't do wayfinding and signage and experiential design well, then you have the other side of like what happens to the guest experience and the stress and the frustration that they have versus when it's designed totally integrated and beautifully. They're going to remember that and they're going to want to go, not that people want to go to a hospital necessarily, but they would pick that over maybe another place.
Yes, very much so. My son just had surgery about a month ago when we went to Children's Hospital, and this at the kids' playground and the colors and the piano going up the walls at curve and all that. He was, you could really see his eyes just look around. He was excited,
Yeah.
and in turn, his mind was not on what was
Yeah.
about to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And the surgery went perfect and everything was fine, but it added to it. And it was one of those things. And I was sitting there, of course, being the sign guy going, wow, that's really cool. I wonder who got that contract. It would have been neat to have built this. This is really neat. But it takes
Absolutely. Yeah.
that theme. It takes that theme over that. And it's so overlooked all the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at how up in arms people got over the Cracker Barrel. And, we've had a lot of conversations just in general about how people make assumptions about brands. People have admiration for brands and some people think that they're not a brand. A hospital is a brand. If they take good care of you from the moment you arrive until the moment you leave, like that's integrated. It also reduces stress on the staff. If staff is of an airport or a hospital is constantly telling people where to go, they're not doing other things. So, it's really, the more that you can get clients to realize that this is an integrated process with the right expertise and the right fabrication partner is like the best possible scenario.
Yeah, no, the fabrication, all the above.
Take a moment to talk about Square Coil here. Square Coil has been powering the signage industry since 2011, and we're only growing bigger and better and stronger every single day. Some of the latest updates have just made my life a lot easier. I'm sure it's going to make your life a lot easier. So if you haven't checked us out, go ahead and get on our website, squarecoil.com. Take a look. And if you have an outdated key, an old software program that's going to be closing its doors this year, definitely take a look at us because we can make that transition real simple for you. Take a look at squarecoil.com.
So back in the day, let's go all the way back before computers, when a lot of people didn't spend hardly any money on designs and themes because who did it were so far and few between.
Yeah.
The people that did this work were artists. I mean, let's just not lie. They're just flat out
Right.
artists.
Yes.
And they were able to draw and show and create this imagery that was absolutely just gorgeous and spellbounding.
Mhm.
And then now we have this beautiful thing called the internet, and everybody can learn from each other. We can all pick each other's brains and whatnot. Where are you guys seeing your society go from? Where are you seeing, from the last couple of years, now that COVID's finally gone and we're all breathing again and everything's good? And of course, AI is hitting everywhere and everything's smart. How are you guys seeing this as a benefit to what you guys can do?
I think, first of all, I mean, our community are experts in their field of practice. So there are things that you can certainly expedite things through AI and through visualizations and things like that. But having the knowledge of understanding how people move through space, what they pay attention to, what they don't pay attention to, um, quality of materials, integration into architecture, acoustics, lighting, how to use digital. Like, I think of the work that our members do as they're like orchestra conductors. You have to know all the instruments, right? Now, instruments change. There is a new system that I know SEPTA, which is the transportation system for the Philly area, used, where they put goggles on people and let them walk through the subway to see where they looked and where they didn't look, right? That's amazing. So we can utilize smart technologies like that in the planning. We can utilize that to do different layouts, to think about how we can make more sustainable designs. Sometimes sustainable means just designing it so that it stands for 20 years and that you're not in there having to redo everything every 5 years, either because it doesn't work or it wasn't quality materials. So I think our community embraces change. I don't think that, when you're an expert in a field, that expertise can be transferred. I know that sometimes it just expedites the iterations or the visualizations. It allows clients maybe to visualize things in advance so that they can make smart decisions about how the space is going to feel, how it's going to operate. So I see technology aiding in those ways. You'll see a lot of people commenting that AI is a good tool, but it's not brilliant at design. And so when you can kind of combine design excellence and expertise with those tools, I think you can have a great outcome. And sometimes there's time saving, but we see the time saving in being able to be used in different ways. So then maybe you have more time to get to work with the community and get feedback if you're doing like a public project, or you can have different iterations with the client. And so I think that prototyping and things like that can become more cost effective. So there are things that make a project better that maybe we can find time and space and budget for, where we've optimized in other areas using technology or
That makes a lot of sense for the small tedious projects that we already know what it is. We're just plugging and chugging. Yes, technology can help you. I actually was going to expect you to say nothing,
yeah.
and the reason why I was going to say nothing in the technology world is because creativity in arts, we've all known that's where the computers can't go. They're
Yeah.
going to try and go there, but they're a bunch of if-then statements.
Yeah.
And this is truly at the core of an artist's level of being
Yeah.
creative and building something out of nothing and have it actually make sense and flow through and have understanding. I mean, that we're years away from having anything remotely close to that. There's no way you can give airport schematics to a computer and it magically has a theme.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that we've suffered from a bit too is that we think that if we just add another digital screen, that that's going to solve all of our problems. But what most of our design community is saying is like, when you go in and if you want something digital, it has to be curated and it has to be designed. And what is going to be there next year? Like AT&T Plaza is this huge digital screen that was designed by several of our members, and it's beautiful. But if the client thinks that they're going to turn it into a 24/7 advertisement, that really shifts, right, how people experience this space. So, even with digital platforms, you need to have the designers and the people who are the experts to know how it continues to run, how much information is too much information, and when you need calm technology, because we have a lot of things competing for our attention. And good design balances that out so that everything isn't competing all at the same time, but it actually goes back to like that visitor journey sequence. And static, graphic, beautiful signs still have a place, right? We don't want everything to be moving. We need
Oh, I
some
agree.
quiet in our lives.
I I, I love the phrase. This is the first time I heard of it. Calm technology.
Yeah.
I love that phrase. I'm going to definitely utilize that phrase because that paints a picture of where we need to go. Calm
Yeah.
technology. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. And there's beautiful things like one of our members, David Schwartz, who's at Hush Design, he talked about that at our Vegas event. And, he has spaces where people go and take a break out of their workplace, and the ceiling can undulate and change and just get them to kind of like take a minute to pause, maybe put their devices down. So, it's technology, but it's working in a different way to have a different kind of outcome. I think we have to not go for quick fixes. Everything does need to be thought through. And I would always ask my client, like, they'd say, "Oh, I want one of those." And it's like, "Well, why do you want one of those?" Like, let's talk about what your need is and design backwards to figure out the right manifestation of that need, whether that means digital, whether it means physical, whatever the end design is.
I think we're going to have a lot of salespeople listening to this podcast as well because they need to be hearing this because this is how you sell
Yeah.
through the understanding of what is truly needed and not just the customer says, I want one of those. You go, okay, and you write it down. You might be missing the mark because they don't know truly in their heads what they really need.
Yeah. All right. I don't know if we have time. I have a funny little anecdote where I was invited to talk to a client who had seen the donor wall that we had designed at the National World War II Museum. And so he got the name of our firm, and I went up to see him in New York, and he had a very important project right at ground zero. Actually, it was the Greek Orthodox Church, and he wanted a donor wall. And so I went to talk about a donor wall. But then I also said, well, what's the story of your donors and why are they giving to this? And he basically said the role that their church played on after 9/11, where people that weren't Greek Orthodox or maybe weren't even Christian would go to the church and they'd make a prayer because it was such a traumatic time in our history. And I said, well, wouldn't you want to share those stories? And so it ended up being a completely different project that we did with them. And rather than just being a donor wall, we really talked about how we could integrate these personal stories to show the relevance of this church in this place and time. So I think having those conversations of the what if, like imagine what this project could be with your client, and you may end up with something different. But I think, knowing because people will say, just put a sign on it or just do this. Like, really, everything you do in a space, whether it's a sports stadium, a hospital, a college campus, a workplace, is really touch points with those end users. So thinking about that, how can I enhance that? How can I create memory? That's really what we try to do.
It's all the above. It listening to you actually kind of reignites the fire of signage and manufacturing. Just listening to this because you get so engrossed in all the different all 063 aluminum bended up trying to get to this client. And as a manufacturer, you forget the beautifulness of what these projects bring to the table,
Yeah.
what they have to show in there's some beautiful things, just
Yeah.
beautiful things. We just finished a big gateway sign down here in San Diego for the old town, and it took us 7 years,
Wow.
five and a half years in permitting,
Yeah.
and nobody knew how to permit it because it was an off-premise
Oh,
sign, and so we had all this help. And we finally got through it, but all the little pieces that we were able to put into from the Adobe and this, and it's a statement piece. It really is, and it's one of those fun projects that when you get to do them, man, does it make a difference.
yeah. Yeah. And, I love to talk about the small and awe. Like, that's definitely an awe project, right? Like,
Mhm.
people are going to remember it. It's going to be their gateway. They're going to take photos of it. It means they've arrived. And not everything has to be huge and expensive as well. And so I want to make sure to say, like, this attention and care can be for a bank lobby that's like, a small local bank. Like, it doesn't have to be like a whole huge Truist rebrand. Like, take those kind of special qualities of that gateway and think about that for like any project because their pride of place and how they want to, announce that you've arrived or get you there or get you excited about whatever product that is or restaurant. I think that's where like that surprise and that element. And I hope that listeners get that spark again because every project's an opportunity, right? It's
Yes,
different.
very much so. Yeah,
It's
it,
different.
it is. I mean, even the little tiny directional signs you do, the little vinyl graphics, where you place it, what font you choose, what colors, what goes with the building, all of it can add to just a beautiful theme and a beautiful feeling. That's that overall brand. But I think a lot of people just forget. They really forget. They're so inundated in the minutia that they just forget that there is a brand to be touched every single time you touch any project in this industry.
Yeah. And you want to be, I mean, I know Aaron is, on the fabrication side, you want to be proud. And so I have found that like it's those long standing collaborations of like partners, whether that's a client, whether that's a fabricator, a designer, a lighting specialist, like you develop those relationships and you know that those people want to do the best, right? They want the end product. So I think a lot of what we do at SEGD is it's relationship building. Like I'll help you. I need advice. Could you price that out for me? Could you, do you
Yes.
think this material would be better? Like we, again, going back to like chat can't figure that out for you, right? You need
No, not at
people
all.
that you can call up or, we have a platform that we use that's internal to our members where they can like throw a question. Like somebody said today, I saw like, I need a case manufacturing SFO area, right? But I think that is the thing that really the behind the scenes that the client doesn't see is like great collaboration across multidisciplinary professions. And that's where that expertise comes in to make the difference between like a so-so project and a project like you said. Like it took 7 years. Like there was a lot to happen. And also after 7 years, you wanted to look like you hoped it looked when the client bought off on whatever that design was.
Yes. And when you're a nonprofit for 7 years, the original team that started this project may not be there anymore,
Right.
and that's always fun and exciting.
You carry the torch, Aaron. You're the one that
It was a good one. It was a really, really good one, but it was a lot of fun. And of course, the whole team over the sign shop, they're in love with it because they get a big
Yes,
landmark to
they're
talk
so
about. And
proud. Yeah,
it
and they
was
can
really
tell
neat.
everybody.
Yeah, it was just really neat. I couldn't imagine like an airport project where you get to start, years and years back and go, okay, they're going to walk this way in this theme and they're going to be here and they got their tickets and now they've left the teller station, they're lost. And how are we going to guide them? And it's so neat just to think about all those things. It's a fun puzzle to put together.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, that is the thing about this profession is it is like puzzle pieces. You have to be a problem solver and you like have to
Mhm.
like complex problems because you're interfacing with I had one project that I did where I had like a contact list of 60 people. You know,
Mhm.
and I knew every single one of them, like there was a historic lighting designer, there was, a museum lighting designer and everybody brought their expertise and it was an amazing project. But yeah, when you get into big hospital transportation or like you said, gateway projects and the codes and accessibility, like having good knowledge or a good partner that you can lean on to give you that guidance is like essential.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's that partnership, and a lot of the beautiful projects we've done that were branded we're close. We worked with designers. We worked with design firms like Ware Malcolm and whatnot, and they
Wow.
they brought that expertise to the table, and that's where your guys is. It's the AAA stamp when you see somebody, the society, and you look at that and you go, okay, if they're part of that, they kind of got their act together. But tell us more about how we can get involved with SEGD, what we can learn from it. I'd love to learn more about
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. So you can go to scgd.org and we have so many resources that you don't have to be a member for. We have our Global Design Awards, which is a great place to look for inspiration. So if your client is like, oh, I'm doing this campus, renovation or a workplace, all those awards can be sorted by different types. They can also be sorted by wayfinding versus exhibition versus digital. So we have great resources there. We have an ADA white paper. We have a lot of things that we've published. But being a member is great because you have this community that you can use as a resource. So as I said, we have like, you can find an expert and you can connect through there. You can say like, I need somebody who can do an install in Atlanta for blah, blah, blah kind of signage. And so somebody
Mm.
will reach out to you. So we have like this interconnection. We also have something called professional practice groups. They meet once a month, and it's basically just an open forum for members to get together. And they have talked about everything from budgeting to scheduling to how clients can write better RFPs and RFQs, um, accessibility, ADA, sustainability and projects. So we try to provide a platform where they're sharing expertise. We also have a lot of things for emerging practitioners. So if somebody is trying to learn about the business, we have great resources. And when you come to an SEGD gathering, we have different events, across the year. We have a large conference that'll be happening this November in San Francisco. So we always have one annual conference, but we have 60 chapters across the US and in Europe and Asia. And so like we have a chapter in San Diego, we have a chapter in LA. So that's a great resource as well for people to just look up what my SEGD chapter is. I know that they just did a tour of the Delta museum in Atlanta. I mean, they're constantly doing things. Our London chapter is doing something this week with the Sign Design Association. So lots of ways to get connected. And I think I know that I personally, when I was a member before I was CEO, I made lifelong partnerships. And so, constantly people are recommending someone. So Erin, if your company has an expertise in X, and you're working with this designer, like they'll connect you or they'll tell the client, like, hey, you should talk to Aaron about this. He might be able to give you a good idea of like how to go about doing this complex, project
Hmm.
because he's done this before. So it's great camaraderie. It's a lot of people giving back to each other because they believe in the profession and they want to elevate the profession. And so, and we cross pollinate with other organizations like AIGA and the International Sign Association. Will be co-located with them in Orlando next year. So I just want to get the word out of how talented and brilliant our designers and fabricators and um, educators are in the field. For example, we have a huge group of UCLA Long Beach students, and they come to everything. They're coming to
Nice.
a conference, yeah, and these kids get jobs. And the other thing that our fabrication friends often say is like, if you want to be an artist, you can actually get paid to be an artist if you like work at a really great sign shop because you're using your hands and you're using your creativity and your artistry. And I think we don't say that enough. Like, not everybody's going to maybe be a designer, but they might be a good project manager. They're great with clients, or they might be a great
Yep.
technician. So there's so many career opportunities as well. And we get people that are career changes. So they're like in architecture and then they decide they want to go into branded experiences, or they're in sports and they want to take their sports experience and apply it towards transportation. So we try to be a resource for all of that, and just check us out on our website. And I will say, if you come to our events, people they love us. They have a great time. We're very open. We're very friendly. We're very helpful.
I love it. I love it. And it is such a niche too that is needed. You guys are definitely filling a void on that one. So I love all of this. This is amazing.
Yeah, and I think too the other thing I would say, Erin, is like we're seeing kind of the silos break down of someone saying like, well, I'm a graphic designer or I only do wayfinding and signage, because our clients need someone who understands the integration of everything. So if you look at like stadium signage
Yep.
or like the Intuit Dome, it might be sports one day, it might be a concert the next day, it might be a festival the next day. So, the expertise that people have around designing agile projects that change identity or change purpose, like you're getting more for your money when you go into a design with expertise like that. So
No, it makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Well, this has been enlightening. I have learned so much already in this little bit of time. Like I said, I didn't know that much about SEGD. I feel like I know a lot more, and I still feel like we're just scratching the surface on what could be.
well, we'll have to get together again, Aaron.
We will indeed. We will indeed. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being on the show, and we will definitely be talking in the future because I think there's
Oh,
more to uncover here.
thank you so much, Aaron. Thanks for having me.
All right, take care.